Okay, who am I missing who doesn't want to be missed? I have Carol, I have Ann, Dan, Peg, Yash, Dylan, Meg, Richard, and me. Have I missed anybody? Because I'm kind of sloppy right now. All set? Okay. So, we're all set up, Macy. This is working. And we're ready to go. And let us welcome Carol Egbert.
Hello. These are two poems inspired by the weather this time of year. Like cotton candy, frost tangles in the treetops. Mist rises from the valley, joins white smoke from brick chimney. Crystal frost clings to seed heads, waiting to catch occasional sunbeams. Peacefully blanketing the meadow, fog is unfazed by black Angus shadows. Frost slides down an icy hillside as mist rises, forming a cloud, drifting away. That's one. The second was inspired, I thought of it as I drove from my house to where I was going. Asleep in deep fog, out into misty morning, car climbs first hill, soft, cool white fog rises. Sun appears, fog retreats. Enclosed by ivory fog hiding valley, higher up the next hill, amber lines, like Dorothy's yellow brick, lead the way on coal-black road. Azure sky revealed as fog retreats. Dover gray fog caresses silver barn roof. Chestnut horses in meadow push through moss green leaves tinged with butter yellow reach through mist tinted with cerulean blue. Magenta petals highlight steel gray stairs. Golden yellow blossoms accent lead red door. Welcome home. A friend said, lots of colors. I'm a painter as.
Any more, Carol? Is that it for now? So, let's have a hand for right now.
Thank you. I enjoyed those poems. So I have, I think, 4. We'll see if I make the time. This is part of a manuscript called Canticles of Beauty, and a canticle for, I had to look it up, is a hymn. So they're related to nature just like some of yours are. A crow. White smoke rises slowly from neighboring chimneys, rolling upwards, then lingering in the cold air. The sun peeks over the ridgeline, a soft ball of yellow. The sky, barely blue, brightens moment by moment. A single crow flies to the maple tree, perched between 2 abandoned nests. He sidles over to one nest, cocks his head this way and that, sits quietly as if thinking, then sidles over to the other empty nest and just stares. There seems to be an overwhelming sadness about him. Do these nests hold meaning for him? They've done research on crows that they actually grieve and they know when they're missing parts of their flock, and I just was, really, I had written the poem before, but it was just interesting that they've done all kinds of research now. This one's called Snowflakes. This is a childhood memory. Snow fog, soft snow and mist, gently wraps itself around the small child. She is in a world all her own. Mouth open, tongue extended, she is catching snowflakes. Closing her eyes, she tastes the cold on her tongue. Snowflakes settle on her eyelashes. She blinks them away as they melt down her pink cheeks. All she can hear is silence except for the sound of her snow boots. She twirls in a circle, face upturned, extending her arms, pretending to be a snowflake. She wonders, what would it feel like to float in the snowy air? Okay, and this one's called Enzo. And Enzo is a Zen Buddhist practice that you meditate, you clear your mind, and you make one circle, and that's your painting for the day. And each day it's different. And I did this practice for a while. I would like to get back to it, but I haven't done it in a while. So I wrote a poem about it. Enzo, my morning practice. I painted an Enzo 3 mornings in a row. A circle defined by thick black paint. For good luck, I have painted each one 3 times over. All 3 look like a snake. The first one, a snake eating its tail. The second, a snake protecting its head. Then a snake creating a circle of completion, life safe within. Today, I completed a new Enzo as well as painted outside the black circle, using pale gray as another color. The white center suddenly became a milky orb, the moon. Do I have time for one more? Sure. Okay, this is called Ice Light. The courtyard at rest is covered in darkness. This afternoon, the sky was dull. The ground, mud mixed with snow and ice. I enjoyed walking in the mud, the way you sink down softly into the earth, as if she is welcoming you to the beginning of spring. Turning around to observe my boot prints, I notice near-perfect autumn leaves, frozen in ice, each one delicately framed in a box of glowing ice light, paper-thin coverings of crystalline ice backlit by the soft afternoon sun, red maple, beech, and oak. Last one, yeah, we're okay?
Follow your instincts.
Well, I want to be respectful of everybody else.
Well, then let me hear it.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Well, there's only one more, but I don't want to hog the time. Okay. This is called White Birch. The solitary white birch tree, not the expected singular trunk, but 4 trunks grow out of the frozen ground, splayed like 4 spindly fingers. The primary branch, more vertical, taller, straighter, acts as a support in the secondary branch, to the secondary branches. These 3 branches are thin, twisted, and bent from stormy, icy winds. We are both soul-weary. The gray sky opens up, soft light embraces each trunk. Now the whole tree is glowing yellow gold. Light has the power to heal, but only spring can tell.
I guess I'm the only one using technology today for this reading.
Using technology in front of us.
Right. Oh, I have email. Sorry, I have to wait. I have three poems, 3 relatively recent poems, but a couple of them go back to a different season than now. They were written this spring. The first one is called John the Hermit, and his name, truth be that John is not named John in real life, and he's not a hermit in real life, but I think every neighborhood has John the Hermit. You know, this is just this really quirky guy who lives on our road. So I wrote this last spring. John the Hermit. This is how spring arrives one morning, hitching down the road, first time since fall, missing half his teeth and reeking of tobacco. So you pull over, give him a ride, let him unravel a string of tall tales with a wide-mouthed grin that warms your heart, while a weary landscape waits with one thumb out to catch a lift from sunbeams rising up the frozen valley, and you, leaning out a window, greeting the sweet, damp smell of warming soil like a long-missed friend. And this winter, Ireland had a huge snowstorm. They don't normally get a lot of snow, but this one was a doozy. It brought the entire country to a standstill. And this poem is a true story of what happened. Without giving away the punchline, the fact is that the stores ran out of carrots because everybody was stuck at home and everybody went out and built snowmen. That's Ireland for you, this country. And I was really struck that I said that's a poem. You have to write a poem about that. And my wife and I were in Ireland this spring, so that's where I heard the story. I'd heard, so I knew it really did happen. But I call it a country of delight because you'll see, I mean, it's tangentially a shot at what's happening in the rest of the world, especially here. A country of delight. It's good to know that somewhere in this hardened world, there's still a country where motorways are moved for fairy trees. And when a rare blizzard lays a perfect blanket over every city, farm, and village, suspending normal life for several days, the stores run out of bread and milk, but also carrots, for the millions rushing out to build the first and only snowman of their lives. And though this alone may never heal the sorrows sown for centuries, it does remind us of the 100 billion spores of human kindness buried under every acre, waiting for a moment to burst the surface of our longing for a country of delight. And last but not least, this is a recent poem, also true story, but going back a long way, going back to second grade. Spelling lesson. In second grade, some girls would lift their skirts when the teacher left for a smoke, a game of daring in random flashes around the room like fireflies or mollusks moored to desks, opening and shutting with a swish of petticoats and red-faced giggles, tempting a glimpse by wide-eyed boys of cotton briefs with printed patterns of penguins, piglets, or teddy bears, one curtain falling, another rising, again and again, the Italians seeming best at this, girls with names like cheese or pasta, or secret codes recited nightly, Calcutta, Trameglini, Scozzafava, Ciccarelli, spelled out slowly in the search for clues to a strange new hunger stirring deep within each letter. Well, not a recent ones, but I have.
Well, it doesn't have to be. Let me also just take this moment to insert something for everyone. I just checked with the desk, and we have lots of time. We really do. So don't, let it be my worry if we're running over. If you have more, read them.
I'll read one of the
We're
poem.
happy to have more people in.
We can do a second round too. How about that?
Second round.
That's fine. Let's do that. We'll do a second.
Okay. So, and anyone dying to get up, this is just written. This is not set in stone. Otherwise,
Say what?
say moi, c'est toi.
Okay.
This is Peg.
Hi.
Hi there. Just spent a little time on Block Island, and I thought I would share two brief poems from a poet and artist who combines her work. And just because people who write poems should be celebrated. Her name is Jane Emsbo. And then the necessity is the reading glasses. Yes, okay.
And Peg,
Yes.
when you sign your name in the book, if you could include her name.
Sure.
Because part of what I feel we're doing here is bringing in poets of all ages, from all places, so that this is a space that celebrates poetry from the depths of hell to the heights of heaven.
All right, I will do it.
Thank you.
Okay. The first poem I'm going to read by Jane Emsbo. In a day when body and mind fit softly and perfectly into its rhythm, life's ifs and shoulds are far away. The tugs and pulls of usual days gone, if not forgotten. How to hold this peace as battles are won or lost, as life swirls around. Guess it's just a crack in the sky of life, however fleeting. Remember it and hold it close. Watch for the first stars as day turns into night. And one more brief one also by Jane Emsbo, The Ocean.
Did she have a painting with that? Did you show it?
She edges her poems with paintings as well as having, I'll leave this here later if any people would like to look. You, of course, know that Block Island is surrounded by ocean, so, yeah, typically, you have to. So her next poem is The Ocean. The ocean whispered to me today, after a winter of roaring and crashing, it settled down into a soft blue blanket and folded gently over the sand, where small rocks and pebbles rolled against each other in the ripples and crackled with pleasure.
Any more?
Well, any more of hers?
Do you have some of yours?
I was planning to do that.
Yes, just we have time for it.
Let's see. One more by her. Faith. Before morning dawns, birds start to sing in the dark, trusting that the sun will rise. 'Tis easy to sing in the sunshine when all is bathed in gold, but to sing in the dark before the first crack of light is a noble thing. These are recent poems, and I don't know about you guys, but it's, like probably the 10th rewrite, but, probably should have 20, but at any rate. Falling Men, dedicated to John McCain, Larry Lemmel, Bill Ellis. The battle-worn old men around us are falling slowly, aged trees whose deep roots have given way. The thunder of their fall, the music of their lives mixes with the sound of sand trickling from the hourglass. Stalwart, resolute warriors, knees stiffened by resolve, one by one, they topple, fall into tall grass, like shooting stars, Their departure rips holes in the universe beyond our capacity to mend. From our once proud banner, bright patches have gone missing, unstitched, faded, and worn. Sing of the friends and heroes falling into a glorious quilt of maple, ash, sumac leaves drifted around our feet. Two more.
Absolutely.
You can always buzz me out of here. Okay.
Buzz you in.
Okay. This is a recent poem prompted by a visit to a cottage on Block Island, which is pretty damn primitive, but beautiful. North Light. The climbing rose, the falling dew on stone walls winding, the cry of migrant warblers from the wind-blown bushes. Years of climbing stairs to the cramped cottage, set like a cap high on the brow of the windy hill. Seaward views soothe the writer on the porch. He tries yet another summing up, crumples the page. Down the steps the garden rows wait patiently for plundering of peppers, purple eggplant, late blooms of lettuce punctuated by random dahlias and zinnias. The fading rose climbs higher. The goldenrod proclaims another summer's end. The dying day paints the western sky in scarlet streaks. Once more our faltering feet climb the cottage stair to stand on the porch, look out to the north light, watch it blink its warning. This last one you'll recognize is prompted by recent events. The muted women. We are your sisters, your daughters, your mothers, your wives. We have tried and tried to follow the rules, behave correctly, smile through our tears. We have earned our Girl Scout badges, baked brownies. We know how to sit properly in rows with our knees together, backs straight, hands folded to accept direction, enact obedience. Our great aunts were nuns, witches, sorcerers, mermaids. We pretend that fairy tales are exactly like life. When Prince Charming hacks his way through the briars to reach Sleeping Beauty, she isn't quite prepared for the crushing weight of his body. We wait in the doctor's office patiently. The kind man in the white coat is there to care for us, there to listen to the heartbeat in a special way. Hard to believe he is feeling us up, rubbing up against us. To cry out, to speak is to be labeled a witch, a neurotic. We learn to stifle our outrage, clench our teeth, learn to channel our anger into other things. Quilting allows us to stab the needle through the folded fabric in our hands. In the garden, we pull the weeds violently from the soil, shake the root balls free of dirt. Mincing garlic, we rub the pungent nub over and over again, finding joy in how it disintegrates to make all fragrant. Such good girls we have tried to be. We channel our strangled words and cries inward toward the unseen core of where we feel most a woman, the place where we hold what we love tenderly, cradle it against the dangers, among which that of unmuting.
Any more?
That's it.
Okay.
That's great.
You
Not
know
even
your-
wanting more, that's my philosophy.
You know,
Always a good point.
you know you're in good company with Marge Pearson, right? Marge
Well,
Pearson.
I'm honored to be in any poet's
Oh,
company.
but you'll enjoy her stuff as well.
Yes, thank you.
So, Yash, you're up, and you have dared to want me to be part of it, which I think is a mistake. But, and then we may take a little break, because we're quite on time.
Good. Just, you know, I went to a poetry gathering down in White River, and I took a little long, and the organizer emailed me later saying, you know, thanks for coming, but we do try to keep to a certain time limit. I was like, he didn't listen to a single word I said. I'm never going back there. So
Stay here.
let's not, we shouldn't be worried about time. My wife once told me that when she was transitioning from motherhood to being more active in the world, that painting, when she painted, she just totally lost track of time. And I said, keep painting. So I hope we lose track of time here, because some of the images already that have you've shared with me are going to stay deeply within me. The snakes around the pearl moon. I mean, it's just wonderful. And the just visualizing from afar somebody on a porch in a beautiful setting trying to write down what he sees and just not being satisfied. It's such a delight in a way, because it's such a beautiful image. You know, he can't express, and not to be able to express things and yet to be trying is something beautiful. So I applaud everybody that comes and shares their poems, and I love it when we share other people's poems that are part of, I think we share other poems. I'm so glad, Richard, you're back here, because Richard would choose poets and tell us a little bit about these poets, and they clearly mean something very important to him. And this is all certainly an appropriate prelude, though I didn't realize I was going to say this all, to my current preoccupation with Rilke, because I've been memorizing and forgetting the sonnets to Orpheus, and I've struggled with them, but every time I finally get one into my head, by the time I really get it into my head, I've realized I've dimensions. I've seen into dimensions that I never thought would have existed, could have existed in a poem. And I hope you get a sense of that tonight. So the first poem is a sonnet sonnet to Orpheus by Rilke, and it goes like this. Set up no stone, I'm going to take my glasses off because I just became conscious of them. Set up no stone for his memory. Just let the roses bloom each year for his sake. For it is Orpheus, his metamorphosis in this one and in this. We should not trouble about other names. Once and for all, it's Orpheus when they're singing. He comes and goes. Even as the word transcends his being here, he is there already where you do not follow. Oh, he has to vanish for you to grasp it, though he himself take fright at vanishing. Now, just to let you know, I've already confused the poem in my head, but that's okay, because I've been astounded about how this poem just, you think you're trying to settle and understand one sentence, and all of a sudden you go to the next one and you say, wait, how did you get there? And somehow it all makes sense. So I think let me just pause here. It is Orpheus, he is there already where you do not follow. Oh, he has to, I don't know if that's correct, but anyway, it ends like, it ends up It ends like this. Oh, I know what I did wrong. Is it? It's Orpheus when they're singing. Is it not much already if at times he overstays the bowl of roses? Oh, he has to vanish for you to grasp it. Though he himself takes fright at vanishing. Even as his word transcends the being here, he is there already where you do not follow. The liar's lattice does not snare his hands, and he obeys, while yet he oversteps. Okay. So that poem was a great struggle for me because because for one, I was able to, when I was working through this poem to recite, it really brought me up into an awareness of my own thinking and how my thinking was somehow predicted by the poem, and I was kind of in awe. At the same time, I resented Rilke for saying about the transcendent, we should not trouble, well, I don't mind him saying we should not trouble about other names, but when he says, once and for all, it's Orpheus when they're singing. I said, well, what about the sacrifice of Jesus on the cross? Are we going to just brush that aside for some pagan poet? It was a challenge for me. But then I realized that it's pointing to something else, because every culture will have sacred names. And so here was my response. I know I cannot call you, this is a sonnet as well. I know I cannot call you by a name or names and have you stop and do my will. I'll just wait. These folks are going out. All right, hand. All right, you ready? I know I can't, so I'm addressing the whatever, the big whatever, let's call it, for now. I know I cannot call you by a name or names and have you stop and do my will. This is a truth your compassionate ones know by heart. So detached, they watch the game of life keenly, never thinking an ill of another, but ready when the downs are done, the goals scored, with win, lose, and fame, to comfort the afflicted and love still the proud, the disappointed, the hurt sons of your glory, to tend wounds without shame, forever and always to be joyful in these our fleeting days of moons and suns. Though nameless, I know I am not alone. Nameless, I hearken, thy will be done. All right, now what Bob has been alluding to. Do you have your script ready? Okay, you don't have to get up yet.
No, I don't have the script. You must still have it.
Now here. So this is so you can come up when I say that line, and you get up here and you read this line and you read that line. You know,
No cues.
well, it doesn't matter. I'm giving them to you. So,
I'm not good. All right.
so I would.
I mean,
It's there, and then you
so
read the italicized and you leave there.
You're going to have to cue me because there's nothing here.
All right. If you can't do it, just wave me off. All right. So,
Do what you want.
as I have alluded to in the past, and one of the reasons you also said why I started this, why this group, I think, kind of came into being, because I was being inspired by all these poems, and if I didn't have anybody to share them with, what sense did it make? And Peg wrote a wonderful poem about, that frustration of like, is this all meaningless? Oh, well, these poems, these sheets of poetry are at least feeding the fire. Remember that? All right. So I just knew I just had to share somehow. And I want to share in a timeless atmosphere. So I'm going through, I've been in the process of reciting this, memorizing this very long poem, because in the process of memorizing, I put every word, every line through the fire. I compare it to, putting pottery into a kiln. Okay, here's it goes. God has just told Moses he's on the way back to Egypt, that that the Egyptians, the Pharaoh is not going to listen to his word, and he's going to have to kill kill Pharaoh's firstborn child in order for Pharaoh to let his firstborn son of Israel to leave. So he's heard this word on the way back, and then it's shaken Moses, and now they're about to they're stopping to encamp. And so it goes, here's where I take it up. They camped sheltered by a rocky hillside, their animals foraged on grasses sere. Of the Lord's new word Moses would not confide to Zipporah, but pondered it over and over, along with the promise to Abraham, the covenant. No other seal but the circumcision Moses knew. What did it mean to be God's firstborn son? How else could Israel stay true to the Lord except by faith that his word would be done? But what new revelation, what new word had been given, and of what consequence? Beneath the stars, Moses lay on the ground, with wide eyes, not sleeping, with thoughts intense with what the Lord had said. His thoughts went round. Later, when the camp slept and all was still, Moses prayed with his eyes fixed on a star. Lord, you know I am here to do your will. You have chosen me and called me from afar to return and lead your people, the children of your promise. Lord, help me be a servant true to all your commands. Moses sighed, unsure what else to ask, what else to do. Drifting into sleep, he thought of Aaron, their last hectic day together, of Aaron's love, though then a fugitive, of Aaron's love. Aaron, newly a priest, unsure whether they would ever meet again. Yet they would. They would. Moses slept. As he slept, the Lord visited him as he could, visited Moses as he could, with an apt lesson in obedience. Lord visited him with the prophet's own blindness with an apt lesson in obedience. A swift cloud, a whirlwind, the Lord stirred in the desert. This is a very mysterious incident, and I hope I just fleshed it out, but retained all the mystery. A swift cloud, a whirlwind, the Lord stirred in the desert. Like a whirlwind, like horses proud with thunderous hooves, unto the inert prophet. The wind intent swirled round the man, who woke with terror, rising from the ground, groping in his heart and mind. What demon was trying to kill him? Lord, and around his thought a great snake loomed, baring its fangs.
Are you so stiff-necked, a servant above the covenant?
The covenant, with pangs sharp, bitter, and fatal, he could not move. The Lord's words to Abraham pierced his heart and mind.
An uncircumcised male shall be cut off from his people.
How cursed was he? Paralyzed, he could only wail, knowing he had not been true, kept God's faith, left uncircumcised his son. Zipporah, he called, swept round by the wind's desert wraith. Zipporah, the circumcision of Moses was choked by the swirling dust. His wife knew all her husband meant. Quickly she chose a sharp flint and pulled her boy. The man's life was at stake. Not a moment could she lose. She pulled her boy. She held her screaming child and cut round his penis twice. Cut round his penis, cutting twice. Then with the foreskin she left her child, ran to her husband. "This is your seal," she shouted, touching the skin to Moses' feet. "Now you are a bridegroom of blood to me." And the choking wind swept away, leaving husband and wife with room to see themselves. And the child wept. When Zipporah held the child in her arms, when it was comforted with balm, she said to Moses, and with her Midian charms and accent, "Now, truly, you are not dead, but a bridegroom of blood to me." Her eyes searched his to confirm her life-saving place. Moses looked at her and could not disguise the doubt in his eyes. Could he ever face the Lord, having placed his life at her feet? Zipporah lowered her eyes, felt shame. As dawn drove off the night, fading and fleet, Moses brought her a skin of water, blamed himself before her and before the Lord, his God, although she had saved his life. My God is a fierce and jealous Lord. She knew not for her sake would the man die. Thanks.
We're going to take a short stretch break. And do come right back. I promise you there's more exciting stuff to come.
We're only getting warmed up.
So we'll start again in about 3 minutes. Who wants to go next? Who's supposed to go next? Or I will.
List?
You're yawning already. I'm up here trying to be.
I'm checking.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
lots of people.
So, Meg says she will be back as soon as she can, if I've got this right. Dylan?
Richard.
Richard?
Who's Dylan?
I'm looking at something here. It
Richard
says,
will be Dylan.
it says Dylan.
Dylan Thomas.
Right.
That's fine with us. Under the apple box.
Good to be back. I've been working on memorizing Fern Hill. Not the Fern Hill in South Woodstock or Burlington, but the real Fern Hill. So I bought the cheat sheet because a friend of mine about the same age says, "Don't you get mental, dementia blocks as you're going along?" I said, "Usually not, but, always the first time." Okay. Fern Hill by Dylan Thomas. "Now, as I was young and easy, under the apple boughs about the lilting house, and happy as the grass was green, the night above the dingle starry. Time let me hail and climb, golden in the heydays of his eyes, and green and honored among wagons, I was prince of the apple towns, and once below a time I lordly had the trees and leaves trail with daisies and barley down the rivers of the windfall light. And as I was green and carefree, famous among the barns, about the happy yard, and singing as the farm was home, in the sun that is young once only, time let me hail, play and be golden in the mercy of his means. Green and golden I was huntsman and herdsman, the calves sang to my horn, the foxes on the hills barked clear and cold, and the Sabbath rang slowly in the pebbles of the holy streams. All the sun long it was running. It was lovely. The hayfields high as the house, the tunes from the chimneys. It was air and playing, lovely and watery, and fire green as grass. And nightly, under the simple stars, as I rode to sleep, the owls were bearing the farm away. And all the moon long I heard, blessed among stables, the nightjars flying with the ricks, and the horses flashing into the dark. And then to await in the farm like a wanderer, white with the dew, come back, the cock on his shoulder. It was all shining. It was Adam and maiden. The sky gathered again, and the sun grew round that very day. So it must have been after the birth of the simple light, in the first spinning place, the spellbound horses walking warm out of the whinnying green stable on to the fields of praise, and honored among foxes and pheasants by the gay house, under the new made clouds, and happy as the heart was long, in the sun born over and over, I ran my heedless ways. My wishes raced through the house high hay, and nothing I cared at my sky blue trades that time allows in all his tuneful turning. So few in such morning songs, before the children green and golden follow him out of grace. Nothing I cared in the lamb-white days that time would take me up to the swallow-throng loft with shadow of my hand, in the moon that is always rising, nor that riding to sleep I should hear him fly with the high fields and wake to the farm forever fled from the childless land. Oh, as I was young and easy, in the mercy of his means, time held me green and dying, though I sang in my chains like the sea.
Thank you for reading one of the most beautiful poems ever written.
Yeah, it is. It's so much fun. I was, we were doing quite a bit of walking, and so I would walk by myself so I could say these poems out loud. I had to extend my walk because I'm up to 26 different poems. So it takes more than a mile to get 26, or almost a mile and a half or so to get 26 poems in. So I'm going to read two poems from this little book called Stand in the Stillness of Woods by Matthew Houghton. Matthew Houghton is a public school teacher and poet in Kentucky, where he was born and has lived. And in the month of August, he was visiting Vermont and went into the Otter Creek used books shop in Millbury and found his book on the shelf. He took it off the shelf, brought it to the proprietor and said, "Please give this to a poet." And she said, "Oh, I know a poet." A few days later, we came into the bookshop, and she had the book for me. That was the first time I knew I was a poet. So I'm going to read a couple of his poems.
You have to sign his name into the book. Don't forget, Richard.
Okay. Yeah, Matthew Houghton. He sits out front the cafe, white beard, hiding lips, forehead pressed against the curve in his tall cane, his tall hickory cane. The cane's twisted, a hickory spiral lock. Footed, it reaches the eye level. He keeps one hand open on the table, speaking to himself as if asking an old friend for advice, word from the other side, drawn up by a tall hickory cane. And then this one is called Crab Apples on the Ground. You'll see it's seasonal. Never was there such a thing to listen for than in a drum line of crab apples falling on the ground. The limbs buckled under the weight of rainfall. The crab apples turned rows on each stem. You could hear them breathe if you listened. Seeped beneath their drapes, ants stroked their bloodshot flesh. In procession after a pelting of rain, equal to the span of earth and falling. And then, since I was called the poet, I thought I should write something. So this is a reflection on it's a recent poem, and you'll see what it's about. It's called You Come Too. Our 29th walk on the Robert Frost Trail. Our first time walking opposite the way the arrow points. The roots of the high hemlocks are like the arched feet and curved toes of giant lizards. Just after reading about a feathered hammer, we see movement in the undergrowth. 2 adult pileated red-headed woodpeckers chipping away on an aging hardwood. One late June afternoon, after heavy rains damaged the trail, a doe in the marsh stood statue still, not even blinking an eye, thinking that we would not notice her hidden fawn. That same day, an otter was bouncing down the rapids. Several years ago, a cow moose, between her 2 calves, watches us from a goldenrod opening before turning into the alder bushes. On a quieter stream day, 5 brook trout eye us from a shaded pool. The longest, 8 inches, looks up, then darts into deeper shadow, scattering her schoolmates. This August afternoon, the river music is gentle and soothing. Walking the trail in reverse, we turn to read the posted poems. We take turns, except for the few we read in unison. The sun highlights the russet low-bush blueberries, now fruit bare. At the edge of the blueberry patch, a clump of white birches glows in the afternoon sun. No bent birches here, although one lies on the ground as if thinned from the clump. 1 mile takes us 1 hour. Each visit brings new refreshment. Today it's the rhythmic tapping of the pileated. Imagine banging your pointed beak against brittle bark, dislodging large chips in search of succulent worms, doing their life's duty, enhancing decay. The woodpeckers quietly glide up and down the trunk. They brace themselves with their stiff tail feathers. With a certain sense of reluctance at the edge of a clearing, we read the final poem before returning to the circular car park. Thank you.
Who's next? Are we going by the sheet?
I took your place, man.
Yeah, you did.
Now you have 14 minutes.
Oh.
Meg,
What about Ann?
Ann, Richard, take your pick.
It's actually Ann's turn. Okay. And then I'll go through.
So, yeah, so we've got some seasonal poems to start with. When I think of autumn, I think of gardens. But this one hails back to years past when I lived in Pennsylvania, and my family and I were quite poor, and so found food was a treasure. This is called Potato Harvest, Pennsylvania, 1973. We never heard French creek called a crick before. It's wide here, and any fool'd know it's a river, curving slowly between locusts and willows, bringing moisture to acres of potatoes, lending just the right pastoral air. Across the wide brown field, the potato harvester jigs down long rows of finished vines, wide shovel underneath, unearthing countless potatoes. Later, like a janitor after the prom, the harvest truck collects all those potatoes, like so much debris. There'll be chips. Junk is what? Lay's Potato Chip Factory got all these potatoes. The owner of all this earth, cramped beneath a truck servicing gears, stilled cigarette tight in reticent mouth, grunts his assent to our wish to glean his field. We are negligible, like soft rain or sparrow, occasional mole. In our hoods, mittens, baggy pants, old boots, we too lend the pastoral air. Yet as we scavenge the rows, bent low, filling our sacks, we uncover nightmares, dark tableaus, wartime, depression, East European ghetto, marginal farm, slavery, famine, the guilt of those who gather leftovers. Wish I had more, glad I got some. Cheery little poem, isn't it? This is easier. Stripping time. For months, the plants grew, small, dark-leaved, sturdy, spreading like a miniature forest at patio's edge. In seconds, I cropped the biggest, freshest, piled them into basket, their warm scent releasing to autumn's cool air. For days, the small twigs with their oval leaves dried in a casual stack on a cookie sheet, just feet from the wood stove, yielding moisture to the kitchen's dry air. For minutes, I stripped leaves from stems, fingers twirling and rubbing, scrumbling dried foliage between my palms, stacking naked stems to one side, tucking dulled leaves, parts of leaves, powdered leaves inside salvage jars. For months, time will bring France to our food. So this next one, I often feel when I write poetry that some of it's pretty superficial and doesn't have quite the depth I would like it to have. So while this poem is about the perfect apple, it's really about the perfect poem. Trying. Reaching. Searching for that perfect, deep-flavored apple, ducking and reaching beneath orchards' myriad trees, disappointed at flavors mild, overly ripe, sour, this one mushy, that one hard as a bocce ball. Where is my ideal apple? Aroma full and sweet, with juices flowing, flesh yielding yet crisp, deep lingering taste as complex as my feet with their multiple bones? I pretend these other fruits are ideal, blueberry, strawberry, raspberry, peach, and each has its savor, bright and real as notes of a summer song. But I long for my apple of depth, with its blush of red, its solid heft. It's actually a sonnet.
And it's quite spiritual.
Oh, don't.
It's deep to the core.
Oh.
Let's have some more.
Okay, just for that, you get Dirty Clothes. That's the title of it, Dirty Clothes. And this is based on something that did happen when I was a kid, at least the first part of it. Dirty Clothes. Each midnight's brief bathroom stop on the trip from my parents' tall I'm going to start again.
Further, you weren't one of those second grade girls in Dan's class.
Never saw it.
Never.
Okay, good.
Never. I'm going to start again. Each midnight's brief bathroom stop on the trip from my parents' tall four-poster bed to the narrow sleigh bed in the front room, only the street lights filtered glow to show the path, I'd say to myself, like a magic spell to ward off evil, it's just the hamper piled high with laundry, just dirty clothes in the corner of the bathroom. But each night the charm failed. A bear hulked, hiding his claws, his acrid stink stinging my eyes, his growl pitched low from my ears only, ready to pounce on my mistakes, to snarl and bite failings only he defined. Even when all the clothes were washed, ironed, folded and laid peacefully in drawers, his bulk persisted. He grew shape-shifter devious. I became an A student. He became a bully. I became a flirt. He became a flasher. I became a lover. He became a pain. I became a wife. He became doubt. I became a mother, and he flew into multiples, daily threats of cuts and broken bones, flus and ear infections, car crashes, drugs, pregnancies, failed loves. Now, I live where bears are real, waking each spring, roaming for food, fur and claws and sharp teeth, hundreds of pounds of weight, no charm or knowledge can banish. So we lived in this apartment. It was a brownstone, and it was floor through, okay? So when my brother was born, when I was 10, I lost my bed because it became his room. And so my parents would put me to bed in their bed. And then when they were ready to go to bed, they'd wake me up. But they insisted I stop in the bathroom to pee. And then they'd move me to this other bed, which was actually a sleigh bed, a beautiful little bed. And that's where I slept the rest of the night. But every night in that bathroom, there were those dirty clothes in the corner. Okay. So this is a lighter poem. Do all of you know that song, It's the End of the World as We Know It, But I Feel Fine? Okay, it was a very popular song at one point, and I didn't really know whose song it was. I could hear it in my head. It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. That's the very end. And it's got these kind of interesting, complex rhymes in it. It predates hip-hop and so on, but it has that same kind of playing with rhymes in it. And it kept rattling around in my head. And it does feel often like it's the end of the world as we know it, doesn't it?
It's REM.
These days, yeah? But I feel fine. Personally, I do. You know, I'm healthy, I'm able, and so there's this crazy complex conflict between what's out there and what's in here. So that's what started this thing. And I feel fine, with apologies to REM, which was the group that created the song. It's the end of the world as we know it, always. Though reading today's news, it feels more so than ever, air poisoned by chemicals, words, greed, and I feel fine. In my kitchen, Wi-Fi working, sunshine spilling through the window, snow melting, coffee steaming, watching REM. I got it up on my computer, you know, so I could see them singing it. All those young white arms flown up, exuberant as the band plays. Where are the black arms? Mestizos, Latinos, gay, trans, the gray heads, the wheelchair. No hoodies, harpies, Facebook, Twitter, hashtags, texting, super sexing, the Berlin Wall's about to fall, perestroika, Harry Potter. We've got a lot of end of the world as we know it. Venom, denim, soldiers, drones, and guns aplenty. Bombs are smart and bombs are dirty. Fires and famine, droughts and drowning, corals dying, glaciers moaning. And I feel fine, and I feel fine.
Richard?
Richard's gone already.
Richard's
Oh.
gone already.
And we have
Me.
Meg.
I'm not exactly sure what I have here, but I was determined to read something. But now there's been so many good poems tonight. I don't know. As a lot of you know, I don't mean to make excuses, but I've not really ever been a poet. I'm really a prose writer, but sometimes, sometimes they just pop out and they're more like a poem than prose, so I think I'm going to read 2 poems, maybe 3, although I think the other one I'm sure everybody's heard, so I think I'll skip that one. And then I have an announcement. No, I'm not retiring, as much as you might hope, and I'm not moving away. Okay, so this is called Excuses I Have Already Used. I totally forgot about it till now. I overslept. I've just been busy, working too much, working too late, staying up too late, not getting enough sleep. I can't seem to get out the door with these pets. They take longer than I think. My dog was sick. The cat threw up. The electricity was out. The internet was out. I was out of range. I couldn't get to the bank. I don't have any cash. And my least favorite, I can't really afford it. But I know just what she'll say. Work harder. Work harder. What she means is, don't expect me to help. That's not actually true. Well, it's kind of true, but it's not as bad as all that. Okay, so this isn't really done, so I brought my pencil with me just in case I come up with any good ideas while I'm reading it.
Don't you feel better with a pencil, Mary?
Oh, I always do, yeah. Yeah, and one thing I learned from journalist friends is you always use pencil, never pen, because if it gets wet and rained on, which it sometimes does, the pencil usually will still last, whereas the ink will be completely unreadable. So, anybody of you who ever put down pencils, you should be picking them up, not putting them down. All right, this is kind of, I decided to read this because so many people had these sort of, early fall, late fall kind of things going on. I have picked all the flowers, every last stem, every head of color and sunshine, swept them, thorns and all, leaves and stifled buds, into my arms. A few, still in full flower, strew petals in our path. Oh, beauty flowers, I cannot leave you. Squeeze into a vase, drink this water. It's been a rough couple weeks, hasn't it? Let's see. So, see if there's anything else to read in here. I just discovered this is from this notebook must be from a poetry workshop I was taking, because this is so cryptic, but it's kind of interesting. It looks like a little poem itself. Door code, matter of life and verse, 2087 pound, which was actually the door code for this class to get into the building after hours. So, all right, maybe I'll just read this, even though I might have read it before. So, let's see. Oops. Let's see. Oh, somebody did one. Oh, somebody did one sort of based on Robert Frost. So this is based on William Carlos Williams, or at least inspired by. By chance. If so much depends upon a red wheelbarrow, why did someone leave it here? At the end of the land, at the start of the water, the beginning of the world? Did the world begin with rakes and shovels, separating the red rocks from the gray, sending some to the water for smoothing, others to a beach further south? Did they rake the sun into the water to cool it and raise it back up with shovels when the temperature was just right? Did they toss rocks like coins, making decisions by chance and by systems? Did they create the flotilla of ducks from the feathers scattered on the beach? Was each to each unknown, a continuous surprise when, naked, they came upon one another and lay themselves horizontally, aligning flesh to flesh, and noting what pleasure takes place so simply here. No wheelbarrow or instructions needed. Thank you. So I wanted to let you know that Anne McKenna was sorry that she had to leave early. She was suddenly not feeling well at all. So I zipped her home and zipped back. But this is her announcement as well as mine. We're starting a writers group here at the library. It's going to be called Woodstock Writers Group. She wanted to keep it really simple. You don't have to be from Woodstock, just to let people know it will take place in Woodstock. It's probably going to be about once a month. The purpose is to build a fun, safe, creative environment for positive, constructive criticism of writers' work. Writers of all genres welcome. We ask that each person come ready to support fellow writers in their ongoing journey as writers. Our goal is to, within a year, publish an anthology and perhaps even launch it here as part of Recite a year from now. We have some really simple sort of rules of engagement, but it's a group rather than a workshop, so we're not teaching, although Anne could certainly teach, and I'm sure there's other people who will participate who maybe could teach as well. It's really to, listen, learn, and learn from one another by providing positive, constructive feedback, which I'm sure a lot of you have been in workshops and have done that. So I hope some of you will consider joining us. I'm not positive when it's going to be, probably on Tuesdays, but we'll put an announcement in our newsletter, and I'll probably have something on the bulletin board, and of course you can just call the library or email me. So hope you'll join us.
Is everybody gone?
Right here.
No.
Here.
Okay.
Your turn.
Okay. Meg, do you want, it's like, Meg, you left your music at the audition?
Is that mine?
Yeah. Okay, so here's a little fun warning to my readers and listeners, courtesy of Wendell Berry. Do not think me gentle, because I speak in praise of gentleness, or elegant, because I honor the grace that keeps this world. I am a man crude as any, as Caroline knows. Gross of speech, intolerant, stubborn, angry, full of fits and furies. That I may have spoken well at times is not natural. A wonder is what it is. Okay. The rest is not fun, but necessary. Some of you may remember one of the first things I read here regarding the current state of affairs. And with a little help here and there from Yeats and Oliver, I want to go back to it now again and continue on from there because of some very current, clear and present dangers. How much more are you going to take? How many more lies do you have to hear? How much more pain do you have to feel? How many more tears do you have to shed? Did you see it on TV? He who gets to be on the Supreme Court for all to see. And did you see her dare to come forth and tell her story? And see her worst nightmares happening all over again? Did you see that good old boy, beer buddy, throw a temper tantrum and go from Jekyll to Hyde right before your eyes? Did you see evil come alive right here, right now, while the silence of the lambs go along for the ride, just to advance their tribal perpetual male pride, so this righteous, petulant man-child can bully boy his way all the way up to the Godhead, to sit on top of the highest tribunal in the land, in the most twisted travesty of justice imaginable. How much longer do we have to see the bad guys win? Laughing and laughing and laughing all the way as they tear and torture, shame and violate with that telltale schoolboy bully grin. How much longer can we wait, sitting on the sidelines, while seeing our children, our daughters, ourselves, our own lives pass us by before we die, without screaming out our silent for oh so long dormant primal rage? Enough is enough. When does it stop? When does it end? What do you think it means when they say things fall apart? The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. And what do you think it means when they say, remember never again? So come on already, my friends. It's about time. What are we going to do now with the rest of our one wild and precious life? And if not now, when? Thanks for listening. Thanks all for coming and having some fun and getting through the pain. Thank you, Macy, again. See you soon. Okay, let's have a hand for everybody.